UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast on the United Federation of Podcasts. I'm your host, Patrick Devlin, and unfortunately, Amy is not joining with me today. We seem to be having opposite schedules all of a sudden because she's getting on the Star Trek cruise. Lucky her, I am not. And last week I wasn't here. The week before that she wasn't here. But we have another great guest host for you today. And I'd like to introduce you to Karen Chuplis. Karen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Patrick?
I've been seeing better days, but I'm all right.
Well, it's just one of those things. We all got to hang in there, right?
Yep. And getting to talk Star Trek helps, right? So
it does.
Can't be too bad of a day you get to talk Star Trek.
Right.
So you can find the network on Twitter and Facebook at UFP Earth. And if you'd like to send us an email, you can send the message to the network at contact@UFP Earth. So, Karen, before we get into the episode, give a short example of your history with Star Trek.
Longtime fan since I was like 6. Grew up watching it. And I have just been one of those people that's been a fan for 50 years, ever since it first came out, or at least was in syndication. And, even through college, though less so, and as an adult, just got back into it. And I'm one of those people that I really do like pretty much everything out there, with episode exceptions and stuff. But I'm really enjoying the new modern era of Trek too. So
what do you think of Picard so far?
I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it is definitely a space drama, not a space adventure so much. And kind of just like an unfolding novel or story. And it's started out, with a little bit more unfolding. And now as we get to mid-season, it's picking up the pace. And especially this last episode, you can really see the pace build throughout the episode. So I think we're launching into a new section of it. I really enjoy it. I have a friend who she's a super casual viewer that watched Next Generation when it was on and doesn't really recall a lot of it, but she's been watching Discovery with me, and now she's watching Picard with me. So she's pretty much a blank slate, and it's kind of fun to watch it again in the evenings with her. She comes by to watch it, and it's kind of fun. She's really enjoying it. So you have somebody who she'll ask me questions and I'll fill in background or history, but she's like, but I'm really enjoying it. She goes, I can see how it's like more enjoyable for you, but so that's fun. I kind of get to experience it both ways.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. My wife is not a big Star Trek fan. She actually started liking it with the 2009 movies, and then watched a little bit of TNG or Enterprise with me, but she's not a huge Star Trek fan, but she's really enjoying Picard so far. In fact, I just had to watch it again because she didn't catch everything the first time I wanted to see it. So, I get to watch it usually twice by myself and once with her. Now this time twice with her. So I had to explain to her like the Picard Day sign and that stuff.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
She didn't really remember that, but she did remember who Hugh was, so that was cool. And but like you said, I have to give her some background. But she's really enjoying the show, which is good. That means it's bringing in new fans and new people to watch.
Yeah, I think it is. And it also is fun to see it through somebody's eyes who's not watching it the way you are, and the observations they make or the things they pick up,
Right. Absolutely. So let's get into this episode. We open the episode with the dream sequence that we don't know is a dream right at the beginning, but very quickly we find out. What'd you think of that? This whole use of the dream in the episode?
Well, I thought it was, I liked it a lot. And it was another form of flashback, even though it wasn't a flashback, it was still Soji as a child, so it kind of counts that way. It had kind of another suspense horror tone to it. The child walking with bare feet on the wood floor. It was very kind of classic, almost poltergeisty. But yeah, I did. I enjoy that they're carrying on with this format, that they're starting every show with a flashback or, the dream flashback. And really well done, I thought,
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like you said, I love the fact that it felt like that old time horror with the flashing lightning in the background kind of feel, with the walking on barefoot on wood floors. And when she wakes up, she's with who Amy calls stupid boyfriend, Narek. And, so we see that their relationship is becoming more real even to him throughout this episode, even though he's still going to stab her in the back at the end. But he's actually starting to feel for her, and he gets a little upset when she mentions what his real name is. That bothers him.
Yeah. He always kind of admires her knowledge of the Romulan culture, but he also aggravates him a little bit. And I think it really aggravated him this time because he is getting closer to her. And that reminds him of that, and he doesn't want to feel that.
Absolutely. Because you can't kill someone you really love, right?
Right.
And that's the end game here, is to get her information and do away with her. But I do. Oh, before we go any further, I'd like to say that Ken Tripp, you were right. We saw Soji. We saw them find Soji in episode 6, so I was wrong. I was guessing 8, but I said I'd come on here and admit that I was wrong, and I'm wrong. But we also find that the crew with Picard is starting to realize why are they keeping her alive. There must be a reason, because they killed Maddox, they killed the sister, but they didn't kill her. It seems a little weird from their perspective.
Yeah, especially Raffi, because I think she's always gaming out situations. That's where her conspiracy theory hat comes from. Is she's just, she was intelligent. She's always gaming out a situation. And for her, the logical game out here would be Soji is next. So she's like, well, why, what did they want from her?
Yeah, and we see that after the drunk scene with her, which was a little weird for me. When she, because they come up with this plan to go, they have to use absolute candor to get onto the Borg's cube. And so they have to basically tell them, all right, we have Jean-Luc Picard, but the only way to do that and not start a war would be to get the diplomatic papers. The only one who can get the diplomatic papers is Raffi from a friend. And at the end of that scene, the friend says, never call me again. And in my opinion, she means it wholeheartedly. Raffi understands she means it wholeheartedly. And Picard just starts clapping for it.
Yeah, I thought the applause was the odd spot here. Although it does once again, in this episode, I see a real shift. We've seen him being distant throughout, and he is not connecting, and he never has. I mean, there's spots where he connects with people he respects and holds his crew in regard and everything, but he's rarely been super personal. Even with Beverly, the morning breakfast, there's always kind of a little wall there. And in this episode, I feel like there's a real change from this scene where he does this little polite applause, which is odd. And then when he meets Hugh and him after meeting Hugh, I feel like there's a real shift there. You feel this wall come down once he's on the Borg cube and once he's with Hugh.
Yeah, so maybe.
It does set that dichotomy up a little bit.
It does, but it just seems like he's just so out of place with this clap. Like, he's so disconnected from what just really happened because he's so focused on his mission, I guess. And it's bothering me a little bit that he's this disconnected. And previously I said I liked the fact that it was this way when he yelled at the boy who binds his blade to him. Elron, sorry.
Elnor, sorry.
Yeah, when he yells at him for saving his life. It seemed disconnected, but it seemed to fit. This one just seems really disconnected to me. and odd. And you could see everyone else on the bridge felt uncomfortable of it happening too.
Well, yeah. I mean, we have Agnes in her own little painful world, and Elnor, he might have clapped just because Picard was, but Rios was right away in there and helping Raffi.
Right.
So I also thought dragging the bottle on the bridge was a little much. We got it. You know, we know what her condition was. But I do feel like the attempt here was to set up that last image of him being disconnected, because we do see a real shift later in the episode.
Maybe.
He comes very... Well, number one, I just feel like all of the Hugh scenes were the best part of this episode. I love all of it.
I would agree.
And we just see him, once Hugh hugs him, his walls all crumble and he becomes this really relatable person, having a conversation in ways that we haven't seen him do. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I really feel like Hugh is the first person in the entire series to actually really touch him physically. I can't think of another moment where somebody really reached out to him.
Yeah, that might be true.
And after that happens, he really comes through with his feelings, and he is insecure about where he's at. He's hiding his face because he's afraid of being recognized. And that's when Hugh stops and touches him again, touches him on the shoulder and says, you are not Locutus. You are Jean-Luc Picard. That was all a very long time ago. And they're having this conversation like just normal people, which we don't usually see with Picard. He's saying, how could you live here? I don't understand. And, he just kind of becomes this much more core person that we haven't seen yet. So I feel like maybe the applause on the bridge was setting up that big shift that's going to come up.
Possibly. And the payoff is good then. It's just, I don't know. And I guess the intent was to make you feel uncomfortable as a viewer, but they succeeded greatly in making me feel uncomfortable. I
agree. It was a weird tone, and I can see what they were attempting. I don't think they needed that to show it.
No, you're right. And because she comes in, like you said, she drags the bottle on because she's obviously an alcoholic. They show her hit a vape pen, which I assume, even though not all vape pens are drugs, I assume this version was a drug.
Well, I'm sure she has her snake weed or whatever with her.
Right. So, because I vape too, but I don't vape. I vape nicotine, but my friends do not always vape nicotine. So I'm sure that's what that was trying to show. It was kind of cool to see in a TV show anyway, either way. But we get all that, and then she even she stumbles over the words when she's trying to set in a way to send the call. But then she kind of talks normal the whole way through, like she's not messed up.
What I love there is sits down, she's like, back off, and she stumbles over her words. But then when she initiates the call, she does this little gesture with her hand when she puts it through, like a musician starting, like almost like a pianist beginning. And so she's obviously can be a high functioning addict. And this whole conversation is completely normal. She gears up for that performance, puts it through, and then as soon as the call is done, she collapses again. So I thought that was super well done. Michelle Hurd was just fantastic.
Right. She was able to hold it together just long enough for the call.
Yep.
And then back to being, drunk or high or whatever she was at the time, or both. But I did like the hand motions, and even then, like, you ever see one of your drunk friends, they do kind of exaggerated motions at times. So it was almost like that motion was the end of her being drunk.
Yep.
And then she would sober up just long enough to get through the call, and then back to what she was before. And then again, we see Picard not really paying attention to any of this, which is weird, but especially since she's so close to him, she calls him JL. Right. You would think that their connection would be stronger than it is now, but then he's been gone for 14 years, so...
I think you have all these people who have self-isolated themselves for 14 years. Rios has done it. Raffi has done it. Picard has done it. Elnor has done it, not necessarily by choice, but he was basically a cloistered person.
Right.
The feeling as a child, he started getting out of hand, and they were like, nope, and they set him on his path. I think we see a little bit of much more normal boy in that flashback scene when he's, steals an apple and he's like, oh, bite me. And I have a feeling that after Picard leaves and after everything